Hello once again, watchers of good anime. My name is Nick Pell and this is my review of Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Arrow of the Orion. Now this is an anime movie based on the Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon anime show, and this, as far as I can tell, takes place between the first and second season. The second season is currently in production, or at least on TV airing. It's 2 episodes in right now, so none of the second season stuff really plays into this, obviously. So as long as you've seen season 1 in its entirety, you pretty much are caught up as to what you need to know to understand and really enjoy this anime film, which is pretty much a standalone movie. It's not really going to, as far as I would assume, play into any of the key events in season 2 to any real massive degree. It's kind of like how the One Piece movies or the Naruto movies pretty much are standalone by themselves films which don't really impact the general overall anime story whatsoever. That also being said, I'm going to talk about the entirety of this Arrow of the Orion film because I want to talk about it. And so if you have not seen it or you don't want spoilers or anything of that sort, come back once you've seen it on Amazon or Hulu or wherever it ends up being where you can watch it, and then we'll talk about it then. Now the general premise of this film is that we have Artemis, who is the god of hunting and chastity and stuff like that, and she and her familia end up getting wiped out by this massive evil force. She ends up recruiting adventurers to try to pull this staff out of this crystal encasement. Bell Cranel obviously ends up doing that because he's our main character, so of course he did. And he ends up on this adventure with his party and Hestia and some other gods to basically try to help her out and combat this evil force. That's a very, very broad summary of the film. The animation looks pretty much what you would expect, is the same style as what the show was, which is pretty much a good thing, I would assume. It looks really good. I really had no issues with it whatsoever. The combat also looked very fluid, and there's quite a bit of combat in this film, which I was very pleasantly surprised with. A lot of anime films, I just kind of assume they're just going to be kind of more spread out with the combat stuff, but it was done in enough fashion that I was never really bored per se with the film. And a lot of that is having to do with the characters because they very much stay true to how they are portrayed in the show, and I enjoyed seeing their relationships begin to develop and continue to evolve throughout the course of this film, because you have, again, the relationships between like Belle and Hestia, Belle and Lily, and other characters that are introduced in season 1. They continue to have roles in this movie. I also found it interesting to see the relationship between Belle and Artemis, because Artemis is shown in the film to be, or at least was, a god who was very much portrayed as the god of anti-romance, so she's not really a big fan of like men and women being together, essentially, unless they're married. And so it's really interesting to see her relationship with Bell Cranel, because it's just not something which at least Hestia, who's been a friend of hers when they were gods in heaven, was really expecting. And so seeing them grow closer throughout the course of the film was a very pleasant thing to see play out on screen. There's a particular dance scene which I actually found really fun to watch. It kind of reminded me of the scene from Final Fantasy X with Titus and Yuna. Not to that extent, but it was still a fun scene to play out between two people who pretty much are never going to end up being together. I also like that the film gave us a little more of Hestia's backstory, because as far as I remember with at least season 1 of the show, it never really tells us basically what Hestia was like before she and the rest of the gods came to the lower world. And so just kind of getting to know that she was kind of a sloth and she was kind of a hermit at the same time. It kind of fits with her personality, but I like getting to know more about how she was as a person before she descended down with the mortals. I did find some elements of the film a little bit predictable, however, it's just kind of the general story. Big bad evil entity that has to happen. One character which is only in this movie. You can kind of guess where this is going to go, with her basically having to be sacrificed, or in this case already having been consumed by the evil entity and having to be killed essentially to stop it. You can kind of tell where it's going to go. That said, the journey is still fun to watch. It's still a very entertaining film, and I was never really bored with it. So it tells its story well, and it's paced well enough for me to forgive those predictable elements of it. The other real issue that I had, though, is the town scenes, because while it's obviously necessary to kind of set up the film in the first 10-15 minutes or so, once our heroes basically leave Oreo to go off on their adventure, there are like flashes back to the main town, kind of what they're doing during this whole crisis, and it never really seemed to fit or feel necessary. I understand that they kind of wanted to make the conflict a wider one and feel like it had massive consequences for the greater world of the show, but it just seemed to almost slow the pacing down. It's like, oh, okay, cool that like the dungeon monsters are all being affected and having to kind of force themselves on the town, having to and the adventurers having to defend it and whatnot. But it almost just felt like an excuse to include the other characters who are not off on this adventure, just for the sake of maybe the voice actors or just including the characters in general. So it just kind of, I don't know, it bugged me a little bit. It didn't really seem all that necessary. But yeah, guys, overall, I quite enjoyed Arrow of the Orion because it was a very fun adventure within the world of this anime, and I felt like the character relationships continue to evolve, and while I would love to see events from this movie referenced in the second season of the show at some point, I don't really expect it to be happening, but still a fun anime movie to go check out if you have the opportunity. So if you are a fan of the show, I definitely say check it out if you have the opportunity to do so. But guys, those are my thoughts on Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, Arrow of the Orion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Did you like it as much as I did? Did you hate it more than I did? Let me know what your favorite anime movie of the year thus far has been. I've seen 3, Saga of Tanya the Evil, Sound Euphonium, and Arrow of the Orion. So let me know what your favorites of those 3 are, or if you've seen any others that have come out in the US, preferably. Let me know. Like, favorite, comment, and subscribe once again if you so choose. I appreciate it immensely. And as always, Merry people, my name is Nick Pell. And once again, keep on watching.